Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We are once again focusing our program tonight on the COVID-19 pandemic. From the latest measures to tackle the virus to the efforts to get stranded Canadians home, we have full coverage of this fast-changing situation. But we begin tonight with a grim update from overseas. Italy, which for weeks has been overrun by cases, has now officially surpassed China's death toll. Italian officials reported 427 more deaths today. That sent the overall death toll surging past 3,400. And that's what Canada is trying to prevent. But health experts and the government warn the worst is yet to come. They're urging people to stay home. Here's what the Prime Minister said today when asked, how long will this last?
We've heard anything from weeks to months. We know this is a difficult and extraordinary time in which Canadians are taking difficult and extraordinary measures, and we will continue to do that until Canadians are safe.
3 more deaths were reported today in Canada. Alberta recorded its first, a man in his 60s. A man in his 50s died in Ontario. And there was another death in BC, connected to a North Vancouver seniors care home. That brings the total number of deaths to 12. As for total infections, more than 860 people have tested positive. Of those, at least 10 people have recovered. All 10 provinces have detected the virus. In 6 provinces, 20 or fewer people have tested positive. Most of Canada's cases are in BC, Ontario, Alberta, and Quebec. Public health officials are pounding home the message, stay home.
Our collective resolve to overcome COVID-19 must be solid and unbendable. We don't just need to flatten the curve, we need to plank it. And we need everyone, from government to communities, families and individuals, to work together.
The federal government revealed plans yesterday to shut down the U.S.-Canada border to non-essential travel to help slow the spread of the virus. There are new details tonight on when that might happen. Here's Mike Armstrong.
Even a full day after announcing the closure of the Canada-U.S. border, negotiations continue. The Prime Minister says the plan is to close it effective Saturday morning, but the deal's still not done.
We are continuing to work on the fine-tuning of the agreement between Canada and the United States. I think it's almost there.
The two governments are trying to delicately balance the importance of cutting off non-essential travel, while at the same time ensuring trucks and workers who do have to cross can and easily. Critical food and medicine and supplies have to keep moving. The border isn't closed yet, but the government is appealing to Canadians to treat it as though it is.
Don't wait for Saturday to do this.
Now, the border closure is part of the entire social isolation effort to slow transmission and flatten the curve. To this point, 83% of COVID-19 cases in Canada have been traced to travel. But those positive tests were from transmission that happened a week and 2 weeks ago. How well social isolation is working won't be known for a couple of weeks from now.
So what I would like to see, and I'll be watching very closely, is in the next 2 weeks or so, what actually happens to that curve.
One area where the government is struggling is getting Canadians home. With airlines parking more and more of their fleets, options for travelers abroad are drying up. And it's getting harder and harder to land planes in countries that are also dealing with this crisis.
It's a very complex situation. We understand how frightening it is for people.
Now, the Prime Minister was asked about Canadians who traveled recently and are stuck, perhaps due to their own carelessness. Should taxpayers have to foot the bill to bring them back? Well, Justin Trudeau says right now the government's not judging people, it's worrying about helping people. Robin?
Mike Armstrong in Ottawa. Thanks, Mike. With the virus spreading, restrictions in this country are growing by the day. Many communities have banned large gatherings and ordered the shutdown of bars and restaurants. At least one province has unveiled strict penalties for anyone who fails to comply. David Akin has more on the aggressive push to flatten the curve.
Airlines are already letting only Canadian citizens or permanent residents board planes bound for Canada. But airlines are also being told that no one, not even a Canadian citizen, gets on a plane bound for Canada if that traveler is exhibiting any COVID-19 symptoms. Those that show up at the gate with a dry cough, fever, or other flu-like symptoms will be required to do one of 2 things: complete a 14-day isolation and return to the airport symptom-free, or get a medical certificate certifying that the symptoms are not related to COVID-19. This could mean that some Canadians could be delayed returning home.
We're focused on trying to get our air operators to facilitate more flights to get Canadians home. We recognize that this is a very difficult and exceptional situation.
As for interprovincial travel, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not prepared to set restrictions on that now, while Ontario's Premier said he was reluctant to have police or other authorities enforce social distancing guidelines.
People are cooperating, and we can't do this by really, going out there and enforcing it. We need their cooperation.
Provincial and local public health officials already have significant legal powers, including the powers to levy fines or even seek jail times in order to enforce quarantines. But those powers vary and are generally seen as a last resort.
If someone's particularly high risk to someone else's health, that such approaches can be exercised. But one is not aiming for that to be the key response.
Still, the federal cabinet met Thursday afternoon, and as the Prime Minister said before joining that meeting, the cabinet is still considering what, if any, new emergency powers it ought to have and when they ought to be applied. Robin.
David Akin in Ottawa. We know you have lots of questions about this virus. Jeff will continue to consult with experts and try to answer them. So email your questions at globalnews.ca. On our website, you'll find a special page dedicated entirely to the new coronavirus. That's at globalnews.ca/coronavirus.